if you're not a Star Wars fan, you probably know who Darth Vader is. The iconic silhouette, the terrifying presence. 3 movies, 7 seasons of a TV show of backstory. Darth Vader is a villain that you don't have to be a Star Wars fan to know who he is and know little bits about him. And that's exactly what we want to try and capture in our own stories, and what I'm going to be exploring in this video. So whether you're a Star Wars fan or not, let's get ready to break down how to create an iconic villain just like Darth Vader. Sup peoples, and welcome back to another video. Since we're talking about Star Wars, I mean, it feels fitting to have all the Star Wars collectibles in the background. Let's be honest, this is just what my desk always looks like, but I'm pretending it's set up for this video. But I said that this would be palatable for people who are not such a crazy Star Wars nerd as I am, and I'm going to stand by that. We're not going to be talking about Star Wars lore so much as the elements that make a villain iconic. I just also wanted to show off my cool new Funko Pops. That's not a crime. Did you notice that the camera angle is different now? Me too. That's because this is like, I don't know how many times I've tried to film this video anymore. I've been trying to film this video for over a month. Like almost 2 months now. I started in the beginning of April. It is now mid to late May. Also, you're probably watching this in like July. And that's because I try and film far in advance because editing takes like a week or 2. This video is gonna get like 2 views, and I know that, but it took me. Please give it a like just to justify me still spending all this time to make it. Thank you. Okay. Alright, let's do this thing. I'm going to be talking in this video about the 4 things that make a character iconic. Let me know if you can think of any other reasons down in the comments below, but for now, I'm going to go with these 4 basic ones. And first up is appearance. I said that you don't need to be a Star Wars fan to know who Darth Vader is. Well, you don't need to be one to recognize him either. From the silhouette to the profile to the close-up, you can tell who this character is from a lineup of other villains. Your character's appearance is super vital to their iconicness, depending on the route you want to go. Maybe they're like an iconic character who's in a contemporary setting and just sort of looks like an average person. I think that's totally possible. For me, I'm a sci-fi fantasy nerd, I love Star Wars, and I write sci-fi fantasy nerdy stories most of the time. So I tend to lean towards cool masks when it comes to iconic character designs. But whatever sort of genre or vibe you want your character to have, try and think about their appearance and how that can play into it. A lot of villains have really cool designs. So think, would someone want to cosplay your character? If the answer is yes, you're probably on the right path. Now ask yourself, would someone want to cosplay this character even if they haven't seen or read my story? If the answer is still yes, I think you have a pretty iconic character design on your hands. Now, not every book or show caters to the cosplay community. That's totally fine. But I think that if you're going for that sort of an appearance or an appeal, then thinking about it from other people's perspectives can be super helpful. Another thing to remember is that not everyone has character design experience necessarily. I know that I struggle a little bit with the aesthetics of what my characters look like. I know their personalities, but I don't know the ins and outs of how a, body armor design would look. Because I'm working on a comic book specifically for my sci-fi fantasy series, I'm working with an artist who is talented at design. That means that I write up the design and then I send it off to them and they try and make it reality. And they do a lot of creative license stuff at the same time because I am not an artist and I trust their judgment as to what looks cool on the page more than my own because I can't draw. Now, you might not be working on a comic book and you might not be hiring an artist. So I think that just trying to lay out the specifics of their outfit and their design beforehand, both like physical and aesthetic wise, can really help you with this appearance step. Write down from head to toe what they look like. If they have a helmet, what does it look like in detail? And even if you can't draw, maybe you could make some really bad sketches of it. No one else is going to see them but you, and sometimes even if you aren't an artist, having something to look at can be helpful. Like when I was designing the base for one of my factions in this sci-fi fantasy series, I can't draw, but I just sort of made like a bad diagram of it so that I, the person whose bad art it was, knew where everything was and it made sense. This wasn't a character design, but sometimes it can just help you to get your own head around it. You don't need to show it to anybody. You don't have to be embarrassed that it's going to leak out into the world. You'll just have it for your own reference and your own brainstorming. Lots of brainstorming. Now, the second thing that I wanted to talk about is presence. Darth Vader doesn't even need to speak to let you know he's entered a room. You just know it. Now, while Darth Vader has what I would call an intimidating presence, you may be wanting to capture something else. Maybe you want your villain to be off-putting or sinister. Whatever your goal, think about how you can make your main character feel that way about your villain. Because if they do, then your audience probably will too. One of the best ways to do this is via your villain's actions or reputation. Think about Voldemort. Not only does his reputation precede him by several books, when he finally does enter the scene, it's with the most horrific event that has taken place in the series so far. Basically, if you want your readers to feel some way about your villain, then you need to make your characters feel that way. Your main character especially is a vessel for your readers. If they feel like Darth Vader is intimidating, you will probably feel like Darth Vader is intimidating. Using other characters' reactions to your villain is a great way to tell your readers how they should feel about your villain. If you want them to be pitiable, have your main character sort of pity them. If you want them to be scary, have your main character be a little scared of them. For example, in my own story, I wanted one of my villains in particular to be misjudged and viewed as non-threatening, but actually to be really brutally, violently scary. So I had them go into a scene where the people they were up against were like, oh yeah, no big deal fighting you. And then I had her wipe the floor with them very easily. If I had just told the readers, this character, people don't think she's scary, but she is, they would have been like, somebody just told me something. I don't really know why they told me that, but they did. But by showing that to the readers, it'll stick in the back of their brain like, oh, I don't want this one to end up interfacing with the protagonists. They wouldn't stand a chance. They're scary. So think about how your character's reactions can sort of guide your readers to see your villain having the presence that you want them to have. Third, I want to talk about threat, because it's sort of similar to presence. Similar to presence, you want to think about how to convey this whether the villain is in the scene or not. Darth Vader is a force looming over the rebellion at all times, so when he does finally show his face, him stepping out of a ship is enough to send people running. Think about how you can show the past horrors that your villain has committed, laying the groundwork for their future ones. Establish the consequences of the villain, and how dangerous they are. This way, your readers will be afraid of your villain coming onto the page just as much as your characters are. If your villain is forgotten when they're not on the page or on the screen, then they're not probably going to become somebody iconic that you're going to remember that's going to stick with you. So I think that it's really important to make sure that their presence is felt on and off the page. Whether they're in the scene or not, the threat of them should still be looming over your protagonists. Speaking of the character who's sort of scary but people don't think she is, once it's established that she's scary, I want it to feel like she's looming over the protagonists even though they haven't met yet. My story is set so that you can see the protagonist's point of view and the villain's point of view throughout different points of the story, even though they've never directly interfaced, or at least haven't that often. So, to make sure that this character looms over the storyline to the readers, I set her up as scary, and then I continually show her getting closer and closer to the protagonists. Now, I do this from her perspective, but you also see elements of their storylines crossing over. So something the protagonists do, she will find evidence of, and something that she does, the protagonists will see or find evidence of. Even though they haven't interacted directly yet, they've both been affected by the other's choices and actions. And so in this way, I'm hoping that this scary character, my villain, will loom over the story, even when she's not in a scene. Finally, we're going to be talking about impact. Leaving the book page or the screen for a little bit to talk about how your iconic character may affect the everyday mortal plane. There is Darth Vader merch. He has memorable lines that we quote and put in our Discord bios and had on our old Tumblr accounts. There are memes of him. He's become a part of the fabric of Star Wars nerd culture, which is then leaked out into the wider culture. Do Star Wars fans know him best? Of course they do. But you might catch someone who's not a Star Wars fan laughing at a Darth Vader meme, or they might know his most iconic lines. So think about what moments your villains are going to have that become people's computer wallpapers. What lines are they going to quote? What song would their TikTok edit be set to? Okay, I totally know what song all of my characters' TikTok edits would be set to. I make playlists for some of them. I base them off of song lyrics. I'm that kind of a melodramatic person. You should see how many Dungeons and Dragons playlists I have. Like, I definitely know what those characters' TikTok edit songs would be. But think about what that scene is going to be. If I'm a huge fan of your story, and specifically your cool, iconic villain, what scene is going to become my phone wallpaper, my computer wallpaper, my profile picture? What lines am I going to quote? Which ones am I going to put in my Discord bio? Because I'm that kind of a person. What am I going to want signed on their Funko Pop? Think about all of this, because as a nerd, I can tell you that we eat it up. I'm a huge fan of Tech from Star Wars. Love him. Favorite Star Wars character of all time, my comfort character, I just love him. I have a t-shirt of him. He is my phone screen. He's my computer wallpaper. He's my Discord profile picture. A quote from him is in my Discord status. Are you picking up on a theme? I'm real obsessed. Do you know what my shopping cart is full of right now on Etsy? Unofficial Tech merch, because there's not enough official Tech merch. I recently went to a convention just to get a Funko Pop of him signed by the voice actor. And when he signed it, he did Tech's voice, and I nearly died of happiness. So what are your readers going to want signed on their Funko Pop? What are they going to quote with their fellow fan friends? Think about what scenes are going to stick in their memories, and what moments they're going to turn into TikTok edits. Don't write these into your story just so that your readers can fawn over them. Make sure that they fit, because that is what will make them important. If you throw in cool visuals just for the purpose of like, oh look, this is the moment that should be important to you, then it's not gonna hit. It's just gonna be like, oh, that's a cool visual. But if you write in impactful scenes, and you think about them, and you have good lines that sound like your character, but happen to be quotable. I know books aren't a visual medium, but we can visualize it in our head. Just because Gideon the Ninth is a set of novels doesn't mean that I'm not gonna be completely obsessed with it in the same way I am about Star Wars. Gideon the Ninth is a novel series, and yet I'm trying to find art of it for my wall. I want to get a shirt from it. I want to buy more books. I quote it. I had a phase where I had Gideon the Ninth profile pictures. Were they just a screenshot of the cover? Maybe, but who cares? I got that obsessed with a book. I'm still reading it right now. I love it. So I'm just saying, don't force these iconic moments. Make sure they fit with your story and sort of happen naturally. Do think about what they'll be. I know that for me at least, my writing tends to start with an image. It starts out with me imagining what this scene would look like, what the character would say, and then it turns into a story. So already these sort of iconic scenes are built into my story because that's just the way that I formulate it in my head. I picture a bunch of these scenes and then I string them together into a story. Maybe your writing method is different, but still think about what those scenes and those moments are. Thank you so much for watching this video through to the end. It means the world to me since it took me a month and a half to film it. It means more to me this time than usual, but it usually means a lot. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Now, if you like villains and you're into that sort of thing, then you should check out the videos I will put up on the screen right now. This one's going to be whatever my most recent video is. There's like a 50% chance it's about villains though, because I love to talk about them so much. But if it's not, there's this villains video over here. Actually, it might be a villains playlist. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have one of those. Just whatever it is, it's villain-centric, and Editing Ash will supply it for you. I hope you enjoy one of these videos, and I hope to see you in my next one. Till then, I'll see you in the next page.